What are some ways that you've seen Christ show his glory to you throughout your med journey, whether it's for your own personal journey or just in general, like your experience with, different things in medicine?
Yeah. I just think I've had very specific patient encounters where patients either express their gratitude or just for your medical treatment, but also for your time and interest in their success or happiness or betterment. And whenever that happens, it reminds me why I went into medicine, but then shows me like the glory that Christ is able to shine through medicine and how beautiful that can be, and the role you can play in his glorification through your practice. And that doesn't necessarily mean every room you walk into you start spreading the gospel immediately, but I think making emotional connections, showing kindness and love, that's one of the biggest testaments to Christianity. And I think just being, as cheesy as it sounds, being the best version of yourself, trying to show kindness no matter what, no matter how tired you are, how overwhelmed you are, it goes a really long way. And I think that's a way to glorify him and his kingdom.
Yeah, amen to that. Yeah. And also, no matter what your personality is either, a lot of the times people in the typology community get really into this sort of thing and low-key treat this like a religion. And it's like, becomes a very boxing, limiting thing. It's like, oh, because I'm this personality type, I do X, Y, and Z, and I don't need to do blah, blah, blah. Like, okay, no. At the end of the day, there's a good and bad version of every type. And this is what separates the mental from the spiritual. Your mental is just the personality. Your mental health is just based on how you handle your personality in order to achieve good emotional and mental well-being. But the spiritual part is, the choices that you make, to do good, to experience goodness. There's a good and bad way to address your personality tendencies and your mental health and whatnot. So yeah, just because you're a whatever type, it doesn't mean you have to neglect kindness, doesn't mean you have to neglect whatever, and being a good example of, how Christ would, show love to others and spread the gospel through action. You don't just always have to just be in your face and just flat out tell people.
Yeah, definitely.
Especially since a lot of times that actually works against, bringing people to Christ in most of the time.
Yeah.
It's more about, living out the faith rather than just going in your face and just saying, do this or you're going to hell or something
that is not my go-to method. So I find it particularly ineffective with the people I interact with. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it really goes back down to, how did Christ spread the gospel? Yes, of course he did flat out just say the harsh truth, but he always said it with a spirit of love. Anytime you try and preach the truth without love, you're really not preaching the truth wholeheartedly, because a huge part of the truth is love. It's founded on love. So if you're not sharing it with love, well, you're only kind of delivering half the picture here. Yes, you're telling what is, I guess, correct in the logical sense. But when it comes to the wholesome part of the truth, there's also an action component and how you convey that truth. And in what ways are you presenting that truth? If you're just criticizing people for, whatever, and just telling them the truth about their actions without showing any love, well, you're not really representing Christ as, wholeheartedly as you should. And therefore you're not really representing the truth very well, wholeheartedly.
Exactly. Amen.
Yeah. Anything else you want to throw in there about, faith in medicine, your experience, your walk with Christ and your med journey?
No, I mean, I think I would just close with, a word of advice maybe to people that are Christian in this journey to keep the faith. It feels very secular sometimes and even anti-faith at others times. And can be very isolating when you're in a room and you feel like you're the only Christian and everyone's bashing Christians or putting down people that have faith in general. So I think, remembering that you are not really a small minority as you think you are, and there's usually someone else in the room that agrees with you, is huge. And I found that to be true. Oftentimes, if you follow up conversations or uncomfortable situations with other people that were present, there's someone that was in agreement with you and just didn't voice it. And there are other people who think the way you do. And yeah, we're becoming doctors as Christians to love on people, to help people, keeping that in mind. Of course, you know, there's the glitz and glam of being a physician, but at the end of the day, why are you doing it? And there should be a Christian response to that. And so keeping that in mind, it really fuels you throughout the journey when things get hard, because at the end of the day, no amount of money could be the primary motivation for me going through this. There are a lot easier ways to get money, frankly. And so, yeah, just having a Christian reason and a Christian why answer, you know, to that question of why is important, and keep that in mind throughout.
It's a good word of advice when it comes to anything that you pursue doing, whether it's medicine or anything in life, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah, ultimately the spiritual health, that's where your spiritual health is dependent on, like, and that's going to set the road, that's going to set the stage for everything else you do with your health, whether it's mental, physical, and whatnot, and how you treat other people's health too.
Absolutely.